I'm Josh. Welcome to another segment of COVID Story, a video series where we interview young people and learn how coronavirus impacted them on their working, personal, and spiritual life. Tonight, I'm joined by Devina. Um, yeah, all right, Devina. So I'll just ask you the first question, which is quite loaded. Give me a sec. Can you introduce yourself? What do you do for a living? What's your living situation? And what's your faith background if you have one?
Yeah. So thank you, Josh. I'm Devina, and I'm currently a student studying economics and law. And I also have a few casual jobs on the side. So I also work in tutoring and as a customer service representative. Um, I currently live with my family. And as for my faith background, I grew up in a Hindu household, but currently I don't follow a religion.
All right, next question. How has coronavirus impacted you? How has it changed life in both positive and negative ways?
Yeah, it's a really new situation, I guess, what's been happening. I think some of the positives that come out of this is obviously I got to spend more time with my family, just being at home and really learning like the daily routine, like ins and outs of it,
Mhm,
because I'm actually home to see all of this happening. And
mhm,
I got to spend, more time with my pets as well, which is quite good.
mhm,
um, yeah, as for the negatives, it has been a bit more difficult trying to keep in contact with friends.
mhm,
Obviously, it's easy to message and call them, but it's always different when you can't physically see them and really engage in face-to-face conversations.
mhm,
But even now, when restrictions have been easing, it has been a bit better. But at the same time, you've got to keep in the back of your mind, oh, you can't do this, can't do that. So it is a little bit
mhm,
mentally draining, just having to keep that in mind. But overall, I think it's getting better. Yeah.
mhm. All right, I'll move on to the next question. Are you happy with the support networks out there to assist people feeling the impact of the pandemic?
Um, Thinking back to early in the year, I think it was really good of the government to recognize that obviously mental health would be the thing that would be most heavily impacted by all these tough
Hmm.
restrictions and, just the idea of this coronavirus and, its impact on taking jobs and, disturbing the lives of so many Australians. And I think it was really good when they announced that they were going to be funding lots. I think it's to the Black Dog Institute or Beyond Blue. I'm not too sure, but just putting lots of funding towards those services. I think that was a really really good move just to recognize and really support those obviously under resourced and understaffed organizations that do amazing work for people.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. How did you feel about, I guess, the government initiatives of JobKeeper and JobSeeker? How did you do you feel like that was I guess that was a good intervention that the government put in place?
Do you want an economic perspective or like a social perspective?
You it's the floor's to you, Davina.
Um,
Can go anywhere.
okay, well, I think socially, that was a really important and really good policy that they implemented,
Hmm.
because as you can see from the testimonials of just businesses, they know that individuals, even like myself, we do all want to work, but we just don't have the
Mm,
hours or or the business doesn't have the capacity to pay their workers, because nobody wants to stay at home all day doing
yeah.
basically nothing. People do want to be active, people do want to go out and make a whatever impact they can have on the world. And I think that
Mm,
those schemes were really vital in trying to keep um, people afloat, businesses afloat. at the same time, there's also that criticism that it wasn't enough to really maintain, like into the long run, like especially now with the cutbacks. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really recognizing the long term financial impact the coronavirus is going to be having on families, on businesses. Um, and I really do think that they should really reconsider how it has been cut back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess what you're trying to hint at is that well, not hint at, but what you're trying to say is that the government is cutting back um too soon
Yeah.
on
I,
like. Mm,
yeah, I think so. Not even just too soon. I think it was just too little to begin with. And really,
oh.
like the consulting period with businesses and all of that, I think all of that was neglected just to in order to pass all this legislation. Um, as you know, like it was quite rushed. Like obviously it is such a good idea, but I do think like maybe even just a week's more work worth of consulting or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, that might have gone a long way in really understanding its long-term impact, or even if they just have like
Mm-hmm.
a mechanism where they could just come back and review the amount instead of just having it legislated straight away, you know, is
Mm-hmm.
going to be cut to this much rather than assessing the situation. Because say for instance, like we were talking about Melbourne, obviously they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be they're obviously going to have a deeper financial impact than many of the other states, and I don't think they
Mm-hmm.
really foresee or they really foresaw that was going to happen.
Mm. Oh, definitely. I heard that when Melbourne went for a lockdown during their second wave of of the virus. I think like each day it was estimated they were losing about $1 billion of
Wow,
revenue. Yeah.
that is
Uh,
shocking.
Crazy, right? But yeah.
Mm.
Um, I just wanted your opinion on this. There are, I guess, there are people that make the argument that the longer that these supplements exist, the more in debt Australia will be. Um, do you think the Australian government being in debt, is that so much of a bad thing, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, that argument, because obviously politically it is quite good to say, you know, we're in a surplus, our budget is going to be in a surplus, this and that.
Mm,
But when the economy is really struggling, obviously you need to spend money to just, you know, keep people afloat. Otherwise, you know,
mm,
things are just going to go downhill even faster. So I think,
yeah.
like for example, like straight after the GFC, that's when Kevin Rudd increased spending. And you know,
Mm,
increase like the availability of jobs in different sectors. And I think that's
mm,
ultimately a positive thing. Like, yes, it will have a detrimental impact in the short run with all these fixed costs, but over time, I do think that it would eventually pay out. Not just obviously future generations will be footing the bill for this, but at the same time, it's going to be helping them in creating a more, you know, a better future where they do have these jobs and opportunities, and it wasn't just lost all due to the virus.
All right, I'll move on to the next question. Has coronavirus impacted your workplace or I guess your studies? If so, how?
Yeah. Um, so, uh, studying wise, obviously everything's been moved online.
Mm,
So at the start of the year, I actually had 1 week of classes that was in person, but then
mhm,
midway through the week, they were like, no, we have to move everything online, because obviously the rapidly evolving situation. I think at first it was a bit of a tough adjustment, you know, just having to wake up and like memorize my Zoom schedule. Okay, I got a class at this time, I got a
mm,
class at this time, I've got to be on my computer, actively participating. Um, like that was a bit tough because it is like quite a different environment that, you know, we're all getting used to. And you don't really have like obviously like just on a Zoom call, like with the lag and everything, it just becomes a bit more tiring than say actually
mm,
going into uni for a class. Um,
mm,
yeah, but I think I think now, like even in second semester, they do have the option for some of my subjects to be taught on campus. But even then, it's very limited to just a tutorial. And obviously, there are strict measures in place where you obviously have to maintain social distancing. They have hand sanitizers everywhere. They always encourage you to wear a mask. So I do think, now that things are looking a little bit going back to normal, but really it's a new normal now.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. So we know that the situation in Sydney has been easing, but what worries you about the progression of the pandemic? Maybe not even in us, maybe not even in Sydney, but like worldwide as well. What do you think?
Oh, wow, really tough question. I think I think what worries me is just trying to get back to a state where things were before the virus, because now I think say say right now, like with Trump calling it the China virus and everything like that, that's I don't think that's helpful at all, or doing anybody any good. And I do think like there is this like xenophobia towards the Chinese or Asian communities, and I don't think that's a really positive thing. And I do think that's something that does worry me, that things won't go back to normal where everybody is just like happy to commingle, travel everywhere once all the virus stuff is over, because there still is that fear, or you know um, of that community, and I don't think that's fair at all.
Mm. Has there been appropriate communication to you and your family about ways for you to move forward and live out a normal life during this pandemic?
mm, uh, does watching television ads count? um,
I guess so.
yeah, I'm thinking back to it, like yeah, like the Australian government, they do have like those public awareness campaigns, saying obviously, they're acknowledging the situation, and this is what's happening, but you can still be connected with your loved ones, virtually.
Mm,
And I do think that just knowing that, or even the increased advertisement of like mental health services and all of that, I do
mm,
think that's been quite good. The communication of that, um, and you see those ads pop up online as well. And I do think, yeah, I think the communication has been adequate. Um,
mhm,
I think, yeah, I'm thinking job wise, there hasn't. Yeah, okay, yeah, job wise as well. Like I do get like emails weekly, updating all the staff on the situation, and um, tips on how to try and get things back to normal,
mm,
at home whilst remaining coronavirus safe. Yeah.
mhm. I'll move on to the next question. In your opinion, do you think there's an area of people that is being overlooked? So do you
Do you
think
mean
like
like a
there's a,
group of people?
yeah, like I guess a population group or a minority in our society that has been overlooked by the government or other like social service organizations? So I guess I'll just bring up some examples and you can tell me what you think. I guess like Indigenous Australians, refugees, asylum seekers, international students. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thinking of those groups, just by society standards, they're obviously the most disadvantaged groups that do exist in society, and the most vulnerable. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not too sure about how it's impacting Indigenous communities, but I can imagine that these tough restrictions are not something that they're used to, you know, um, living out in remote areas, or just trying to, maintain their connection um, with the land and their spirits. It must have been tough with all these lockdown procedures or trying to make sure that trying to interact with their extended family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that would have disproportionately hit them quite hard, especially, and yeah, I think especially with, say, homeless people as well. Yeah, like you have to stay indoors, but where do they have a house to stay
Mm-hmm.
indoors in?
Mm-hmm.
And it has been quite upsetting to, hear those stories that they just don't have the capacity to look after themselves, already with their weakened immune system from sleeping outside every night with no shelter or proper access to nutrition or food. Um, yeah, I do think that the government did try to really help them out by letting them stay in hotels, but that's obviously just a band-aid solution. What Yeah, they do need stronger social support services like employment training or upskilling, um, possibly living in housing commission for a while so they can get up on their feet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, as for international students, I do think, yeah, they would definitely have been hit hard by this just because it's they like we discussed, they come to Australia to study and it's a completely different experience and they don't really get to meet anybody new and they're already away from their families, most of them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends, she's from Oman and she's living with her host family. So at least she has, a group of people that she can connect with.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine that's not the situation for most other international students, and that would be a bit difficult. I'm not sure, what services that the government will be providing to help them out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Davina, we want to end the interview on a good note. You've already mentioned some positives, um, with the coronavirus pandemic, but I guess what are other positives that you've seen come out of the pandemic? Anything else that you can think of?
I think it has been quite endearing to see. I think it's in Italy or some other countries where they'll things like at 6 o'clock they'll just start clapping for all the
Mm-hmm.
frontline workers. I do think
Mm-hmm.
they've all been quite underappreciated, in the times leading up to the virus, and I do think
Mm-hmm.
it's quite important that they do get recognised for all the effort and all the time
Mm-hmm.
and the care they put in to looking after their patients. And it has been so heartwarming to see, humans just connecting on that level. And you just hear all these stories where, or even on my street where the kids across the road they post new photos, new not photos, sorry, they draw pictures
Uh-huh.
and they just put it on the windows. I think the last one I saw was a rainbow. So
Oh.
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, rainbow, and I think it was a flower with it. So yeah, it's nice seeing people trying to find new ways to connect with each other given these challenging
Mm.
times.
Anyway, I guess that's the end of the interview. Thank you, Davina, for appearing tonight.
No worries, thank you, Josh. Those questions are really insightful and really made me think deep and hard about like what's been happening these past
Mm.
few months.
Hi, I'm Thomas.
And I'm Josh.
Thanks for watching the video. Hope you can give it a like and share it around.
See you guys next time.